Shana Tova, everybody.
Shana Tova.
The expression "saved by the bell" comes from boxing. The 3 notes stops the 3-minute round, giving the pummeled boxer time to regroup before the next round. But for the past year, it certainly feels that we've been in the ring, getting punched, getting knocked down, and didn't hear the to save us. We assumed the year 5782 was going to provide relief, at least a return to normalcy after the pandemic, a year to celebrate, a year to recapture what was taken away, a year to feel the tangibility of kindness, a year to remember the joy of community. But it didn't happen. We're stuck in the ropes, taking hits from all sides. We face new COVID variants, Delta, Omicron, and the 2 subvariants that don't even get real names, but rather something that sounds like the Dewey Decimal System. BA 4.6, BA 5. The inflation rates are at record highs, crippling the finances of so many Americans. Groceries, gas, cars are more expensive. Russia's invasion of Ukraine not only led to a humanitarian emergency, but also a grain shortage. We witness again the horror of mass shootings in Texas and in Chicago, an immigration crisis at our southern border, record crime rates while there's an exodus of police resignations, a fentanyl epidemic devastating our communities, a looming Iranian deal, and the constant plague of Jew hatred everywhere. I wish I could say that we are not on edge, but something isn't right with us now. A record number of Americans say that they're suffering. Our levels of stress, impatience, and anxiety are at the highest levels in a decade. And Americans are still the most stressed people in the world. The American Psychological Association found a demand this surge to treat anxiety and depression, but most psychologists don't have the capacity for accepting new patients, including children. Campus counselors are burned out and short-staffed. Again, something isn't right. We're hurting, but this time, like really, and I mean really, we're taking out our anger on others. For example, we're getting into fistfights at the airport and on the plane. Frequently, a passenger on a Frontier airline flight was duct-taped after assaulting 2 flight attendants. Even last month, a gate agent and a customer got into a scrap in Dallas. And in Denver, there was an actual brawl inside a terminal train. The FAA fines for unruly behavior this year have already exceeded $1 million. One of the most celebrated actors slapped one of the most celebrated comedians at the most celebrated night in Hollywood because of a harmless joke. Outside airplanes, airports, trains, and the Dolby Theater were mad at healthcare workers. Threats against them have increased so bad that nurses are carrying panic buttons. Patients at Indiana University Hospital are now greeted by a banner that reads, "Please take responsibility for the energy you bring into this space. Your behavior matters." Do you remember Toonces the Driving Cat on Saturday Night Live? Toonces wasn't the best driver behind the wheel, driving off cliffs or crashing into everything, everywhere, including the Washington Monument. It seems we're taking tips from Toonces the cat. Transportation data tells us they were driving more recklessly, crashing our cars at record rates, and worst of all, road rage is also up. Substance abuse has also skyrocketed. We're drinking more alcohol and taking more drugs to self-medicate. And since March 2020, the word contagious was used often to describe the transmission of a virus. But researchers now believe that rudeness is actually contagious. Christine Paraf, a professor at Georgetown University, found that because today's climate is so toxic, people spread their poor behavior to the coworkers, the bosses, clients, the mailman, or the grocery cashier, who weren't the original source of the negativity. She wrote, "People who witness rudeness are 3 times less likely to help someone else." In other words, we are actually catching rudeness from others. And finally, I think the most difficult statistic to process this evening is the following. 70% of Americans believe that we are on the verge of World War III. I want to repeat this. 70% of Americans believe that a major world war is imminent. Oi Gewalt. Is it really this bad for us? How did this misery and fear leach onto us so easily? I never want to appear naive, but it's like we're choosing to live in an actual paradox and kvetch. We're living in the greatest technological era. Everywhere, our lives are supposed to be better, easier, with one click of a button, right? We can download a song or order groceries from space in mere seconds. Even the invention of FaceTime has enhanced the way to communicate. Grandparents can see their grandchildren in real time. Mothers, hi mom, can tell their sons to get haircuts. And above all, we're living in the greatest period for the advancement of medicine that will help us live longer with dignity. Yet even with such progress and innovation, we're choosing to live on this special place where we have a one-way ticket to Planet Me, amplifying our self-importance and our self-centeredness. No wonder it feels like we're stuck in the ropes, taking hits from all sides. No wonder why it feels that we are struggling. I believe that many, if not most of us, feel the despair of the moment. It's the anxiety that keeps us up at night. It's the pain we can see from our children's faces. I don't think I need to provide any more stats. I think we get what's going on. I also believe we're so tired of living this way, consumed with the fear, the fighting, the divisions, the politics, the over-the-mountain Facebook wars, the pejorative and beyond mean forwarded emails, or the shameful gossiping at the dinner party. You know what I'm talking about. It's this gossip that gets back to everyone, including me. And I firmly believe we want this new year to be filled with kindness, compassion, especially empathy. You know the things that make us happy. We want to be happy. We want our children thriving, not living in this chaotic world that we created. Let's certainly try. So for this new year, for this moment tonight, let's pause and take a breath. It's time to remember that we have the tools to change. We're simply not Rocky Balboa. We cannot withstand this anymore. It's time to stop this fight. It's time to stop the round before we're all knocked out. Jeff, please ring the bell. Rosh Hashanah, in its most literal translation, means the first of the year. I asked my daughter Lillian what Rosh Hashanah meant to her. Her answer, Earth gets a birthday party, and I get a toy, right? Her 5-year-old imaginative and curious mind was spot on. Our rabbis understood Rosh Hashanah as Yom Hayrat Olam, the birthday of the world, and the birthday of human beings. It's this day we are blessed with the potential for continuous self-creation, self-renewal, and self-improvement. The birthday gift isn't a toy. It's a better gift. It's a reminder that we can always return to get back on the right path. So I guess the question still remains, how do we return in this chaotic time? There's an old Hasidic story about Rabbi Yitzhak of a small town in Ukraine. And in this town where the famous Rabbi Yitzhak lived, there was a poor shoemaker. He had no money. He was forced to walk the streets looking for potential customers who needed shoes to be repaired. It happened one day that Rabbi Yitzhak was standing at the doorway of his house when the shoemaker passed by. The shoemaker cried out desperately, "Rabbi, surely you have a pair of shoes that need to be fixed." Upon hearing these words, Rabbi Yitzhak began to cry. He turned to his wife, who was standing next to him, and said, "You see, even the shoemaker can tell that I need to fix myself." Rabbi Yitzhak was so spiritually committed to self-examination and introspection that he was able to hear how each life encounter was a gateway to change and to growth. As he believed in his soul and his heart, every experience of our lives has a message for us. Rabbi Yitzhak reminds us to take a pause, take the time to look for the message, and most importantly, we need to hear the message if we want to change. And as Rabbi Yitzhak would tell us today, we see the message loud and clear. A country on fire and our citizens struggling more than ever. And as Rabbi Yitzhak would teach us today, it's to hear the message is to recognize that people are hurting. And it's how we, us, engage with our brothers, our sisters, our children, the neighbors, that can make all the difference in the world. If we can actually find the time and walk in other people's shoes, the friend, the neighbor, the gate agent, we will realize that. And just maybe, this is the spark that is needed to get back what was lost, what was taken away, and above all, to remember what is great about being together. Whether we are committing acts of kindness or witnessing acts of kindness, one thing is certain. The kindness becomes a welcome contagion, and it will surely spread in our community. I want to conclude with this story. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, the 19th century sage who founded modern Jewish ethics, wrote, "When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. I found it was difficult to change the world, so I tried to change my country. When I found that I couldn't change the country, I began to focus on my town, but I couldn't change the town, and as an older man, I just tried to change my family. Finally, now as an old man, I realize that the only thing I can change is myself, and And suddenly I realized that if long ago, if I had changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family. Then my family and I could have made an impact on our town. Their impact could have changed the country, and I could have changed the world. I feel like it's one of my first high holidays at Temple Emanu-El. I haven't seen your faces in such a long time. It's so wonderful to have you back in this sacred space, in our sacred home. Therefore, to this community, I say this to you as we are finally together. We're not instantly going to stop the fighting at the airports. We're not going to slow down on the 280. We're not going to stop inflation rates. We can't stop the social media fights, and we can't immediately solve the mental health crisis and the anxiety. But I have hope in each of you. Even during these painful times, we can make a difference to alleviate the suffering for ourselves and for our children. For this Rosh Hashanah, it's up to us to be the ones to change, to be present at every moment, to emphatically listen, to respond with compassion and kindness, even when we disagree. This is how we save people by the bell. Shana Tova.